Russia just made history in the worst possible way. Moscow claims its Nudol anti-satellite weapon successfully destroyed an American spy satellite in low Earth orbit, marking what defense analysts are calling the first confirmed space combat kill of 2024. The target was a classified NRO reconnaissance platform positioned over the Black Sea, a satellite that had been providing real-time intelligence on Russian military movements since the start of the Ukraine war. Within 72 hours of the strike, the Pentagon went silent. No confirmation, no denial, just a classified briefing to Congress and a sudden repositioning of 3 other American satellites away from vulnerable orbital paths. We need to talk about exactly what just happened, because this single event may have just started a war that nobody on Earth can see, but everyone will feel. The weapon Russia allegedly used is the Nudol A-235, a direct-ascent anti-satellite missile that has been in development since 2011. The system was designed with one purpose: killing American satellites. The Nudol is launched from a mobile transporter erector launcher, the same type of vehicle Russia uses for its Iskander ballistic missiles. It accelerates to hypersonic speeds within seconds of launch and carries a kinetic kill vehicle designed to collide with its target at velocities exceeding 8 kilometers per second. At that speed, no explosive warhead is necessary. The impact energy alone vaporizes the satellite on contact. Here is where the technical specifications matter. The Nudol's confirmed operational ceiling is approximately 800 kilometers, putting nearly every American military satellite in low Earth orbit within its kill range. The system uses a multi-stage solid-fuel rocket motor, giving it a launch-to-impact time of roughly 10 to 15 minutes, depending on target altitude. Russia has conducted at least 10 known tests of this system since 2015, and the November 2021 test drew international condemnation when it destroyed an old Soviet satellite called Cosmos 1408, generating more than 1,500 pieces of trackable debris. That test was a message. What happened last week was the delivery. Defense analysts are no longer categorizing the Nudol as an experimental system. They are classifying it as an operational weapons platform integrated into Russia's Aerospace Forces command structure. General Sergei Surovikin, the commander overseeing Russian space defense operations, reportedly authorized the deployment of 3 Nudol batteries to undisclosed locations following NATO's expansion of satellite reconnaissance over Russian territory. Those batteries are mobile. They can relocate within hours, and Western intelligence has lost track of at least one of them. Now, here is where the competing narratives fracture. The Russian Ministry of Defense has not officially confirmed the strike on record. However, state media outlet RIA Novosti published an editorial within hours of the alleged event that described the Nudol as having demonstrated its combat effectiveness against hostile reconnaissance infrastructure. That is not an accident. Russian state media does not publish language like that without clearance from the Kremlin. The Pentagon's response has been unusual. Typically, the Department of Defense issues rapid statements denying adversarial claims or confirming American assets remain operational. This time, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin provided a single line: "We are aware of reports regarding space-based activities and are monitoring the situation closely." No confirmation, no denial. That silence itself is information. But consider what that means. The United States operates the most advanced space surveillance network on Earth. The Space Fence radar system, operated by the U.S. Space Force, tracks over 26,000 objects in orbit, some as small as 10 centimeters. If an American satellite had simply malfunctioned or deorbited naturally, the Pentagon would say so. The silence suggests something happened that Washington is not ready to discuss publicly. Stay with me, because the evidence trail points to something much larger than a single satellite. Within 48 hours of the alleged strike, 3 separate developments occurred that have not been connected in mainstream reporting. First, the 18th Space Defense Squadron at Vandenberg Space Force Base issued an unusual conjunction warning for objects in the same orbital plane as the targeted satellite. Conjunction warnings indicate potential collision risks from debris. The squadron does not issue these warnings randomly. Second, commercial satellite tracking services reported an anomaly. Leo Labs, a private company that monitors orbital objects, noted the sudden appearance of multiple untracked fragments near the last known position of a classified American asset. Their public statement was carefully worded. We observed unexpected debris events in low Earth orbit consistent with a breakup or collision event. They did not attribute causation. Third, and this is the detail nobody else is reporting, the United States repositioned at least 2 other reconnaissance satellites within 72 hours. Orbital adjustment maneuvers of this type consume limited fuel reserves. Satellites do not burn fuel to change position unless there is a compelling operational reason. You do not move assets that cost $500 million to build unless you believe they are in danger. The pattern does not confirm Russian claims, but it does not support a natural malfunction either. Something destroyed that satellite. Most people think American spy satellites just take photographs from space. In reality, the asset Russia allegedly destroyed was part of a signals intelligence constellation, a satellite designed to intercept electronic communications, radar emissions, and data transmissions from Russian military units. Here is why that matters. Since February 2022, these satellites have been providing Ukrainian forces with real-time intelligence on Russian troop movements, supply convoys, and command nodes. The data flows from orbit to ground stations, then to fusion centers where it is processed and passed to Ukrainian commanders within minutes. This satellite was not a passive observer. It was an active participant in the conflict. Russia has complained about this for 2 years. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated publicly that American satellite support constitutes direct participation in the war. His words, "The infrastructure enabling Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory extends into space. We reserve the right to respond accordingly." That was 8 months ago. If the Nudol strike is confirmed, it means Russia stopped making threats and started making decisions. Here is where the math starts to work against the United States. The Space Force currently operates approximately 200 satellites dedicated to military communications, reconnaissance, and navigation. Russia has tested the Nudol at least 10 times. China has conducted its own anti-satellite tests, including the 2007 destruction of a weather satellite that created debris still threatening spacecraft today. Between them, Russia and China have the capacity to threaten nearly every American military satellite in low Earth orbit. Now, consider the cost equation. A single Nudol missile costs an estimated $30 to $50 million to produce. The satellite it allegedly destroyed cost approximately $1.5 billion to build and launch. Russia spent 3% of the cost to destroy 100% of the capability. That is an exchange rate the Pentagon cannot sustain. The United States does not have rapid satellite replacement capacity. Building and launching a reconnaissance satellite takes 3 to 5 years under current procurement systems. SpaceX has accelerated some launch timelines, but the satellites themselves require years of construction and testing. Russia can build Nudol missiles faster than America can replace the satellites they destroy. General James Dickinson, commander of U.S. Space Command, testified to Congress in 2023 that the military is not prepared for a sustained conflict in space. His words, "Our satellites were designed for a permissive environment. That environment no longer exists." The conflict is not staying in orbit. Within 24 hours of the alleged strike, the Russian government announced it was withdrawing from the 1967 Outer Space Treaty's consultation mechanisms. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov stated that the treaty framework had been rendered obsolete by American militarization of space. That withdrawal has consequences. The Outer Space Treaty prohibits the placement of nuclear weapons in orbit, but it does not explicitly ban conventional anti-satellite weapons. Russia is signaling that it considers space a legitimate domain of warfare, no different from land, sea, or air. China has not commented officially, but defense analysts note that Beijing is watching closely. China operates its own anti-satellite program, including the SC-19 direct ascent weapon. If Russia faces no significant consequences for destroying an American satellite, China may conclude that similar actions carry acceptable risk. The United States has options, but none of them are good. America could respond by targeting Russian satellites, but that would confirm space as an active warfighting domain and accelerate a debris cascade that could render entire orbital bands unusable for decades. The Kessler syndrome, a theoretical chain reaction of collisions generating exponentially more debris, could become reality. Alternatively, the U.S. could pursue diplomatic responses, but sanctions have had limited effect on Russian behavior in other domains. There is no indication economic pressure would deter future strikes. Here is what nobody in Washington or Moscow is saying publicly. Modern civilization depends on satellites, GPS navigation, weather forecasting, international communications, financial transaction timing. All of it runs through orbital infrastructure. A sustained conflict in space would not just affect militaries, it would affect every person on Earth who uses a cell phone, checks a weather app, or flies on a commercial aircraft. The debris from a single satellite destruction can remain in orbit for decades. The 2021 Nudol test created fragments that forced the International Space Station to conduct emergency avoidance maneuvers 3 times in the following year. Now imagine that scenario multiplied across dozens of destroyed satellites. Low Earth orbit could become a minefield. Defense Secretary Austin is scheduled to meet with NATO counterparts next week. Space defense is now on the agenda. The question facing Western leaders is not whether to respond, but how to respond without triggering exactly the escalation they are trying to prevent. Russia has demonstrated capability. Russia has demonstrated intent. The question now is whether anyone can put this genie back in the bottle. What do you think? Is this the beginning of a new era of space warfare, or can diplomacy still prevent further escalation? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If this is your first time here at News Untold, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss an update. We cover the stories that mainstream media overlooks and break down the geopolitical developments that actually matter. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.